It's good enough. I hate that saying too, good enough. To me, that just means that you don't really try hard enough, or you don't take as much pride in your work as what you should. That's not how I operate. I take pride in my work, and I think you guys can see that. Folks, red alert, I am sounding the alarm. We are about to get our first major snowfall of the year. In my area here, we're expected to get between 6 to 12 inches of heavy wet snow. We're less than 24 hours out, and I have a lot of chores I gotta get done before the snow falls. Which, in actuality, this is really no big deal. It's just another snowstorm. It snowed in the past, we've dealt with it, and it's gonna snow again in the future, and we're gonna deal with it. But that's not how the news wants you to view it. They want to cause panic, they want to cause fear, they want to cause division. I don't know about the rest of you, but I can't stand to watch the news anymore. It just, they over-dramatize everything. They like to create fear. They like to create a dependency for you, the viewer, to have to watch the news to know what to think. I'm just sick and tired of it. I just can't stand it. And the way that is the way it is because when people watch the news, basically the more viewership a news station has, they can show that to potential advertisers. Hey, look at all the people that are watching our station. So then the advertisers can say, oh, wow, look at all the people you have. Let me spend some money on advertising. And basically they both become richer while us, the people, become more panicked, more divided, more disoriented, and more dependent. So in closing here, before we get on with the day here, think for yourself. Don't believe everything you read, and try and be a lion, not a sheep. All right, so task number 1, I need to fix this 4-inch corrugated drain pipe. Reason being, after this snowstorm, a few days later, there's going to be a heavy rainstorm. I live on the side of the hill, so controlling water runoff is critically important to preventing water intrusion into the basement. And during the last rainstorm, our sump pumps were cranking, and I identified this to be one of the culprits right here. So this piece of pipe right here is cracked, so we got to pull some of this rock wall back and replace it. And yes, I know having this pipe run behind these rocks isn't the best idea, but you know, we're just going to put a patch on it, put the rocks back, make it work, do the best we can with what we have in terms of our time and financial resources. So just gonna make it better. That's all. At least the ground isn't completely froze over yet. That's a plus. The original cracks I identified are down here, but the further I go back, the more cracks I find. Which is unfortunate. We have a crack right here, so I think we probably got to mine back another foot, and hopefully the pipe's good there, and then we should be able to slice in a new section here. Just not what I want to be doing before a snowstorm, but you got to do what you got to do to protect the house. Alright, here was the initial crack in the pipe that I discovered. And I'm about 2.5 feet back into the hillside here. And I'm going to stop right here. This seems to be the last hole. Hopefully there's no other major holes in the back. I think I would hear it. And I would see some undermining if that were the case. But the dirt does seem to be packed pretty well along the pipe from this point back. So I'm probably going to make my cut right here. Throw our splice in. Pull this section of pipe out. Maybe cut some of the roots back. Make a nice base. And we're going to have to start digging in there and see where we can make a good connection too. And you know, actually about 2 years ago now, you can see I actually did a small repair on this pipe as well. So somewhere underneath here, when I restocked this rock wall, I must have identified a cracked piece of this 4-inch corrugated pipe. This repair has been holding up fine. I think it may have been smart to throw some stainless steel screws in the top of the pipe. You guys let me know what you think, but I think that would have been good to prevent this from pulling apart. I mean, it's still fine, but still. But anyway, something I did, I had an old jackhammer bit laying around, and I used that as kind of a bridge to keep all this rock pressure off where that pipe sneaks in behind the rock wall. So my question is, where did I make that other splice? Is it somewhere in here? If that's the case, I don't think I'm going in that far, even though I probably should. So we'll just dig into the hillside here after I cut that and see what we find. All right, let's try cutting this pipe. It's pretty chintzy. I think a utility knife will do just fine. Oh yeah, right in, like nothing. Like going through aluminum foil, to be honest.
Alright, now I'm ready to make my second cut and cut out the rest of this damaged portion of pipe. The rest of this back here is fine. Dirt's packed in nice and tight. Don't see any cracks or anything. So let's make another cut. I figure we'll cut somewhere around here. So my technique for cutting this pipe with a razor knife, of course you could use a sawzall if you want, but I didn't want to get my blade dulled by all the rocks in the soil here. But what I do, I just start on the top. I like to try and follow a ridge. It's my personal preference. And then I'll cut an access slot. So I'll come back, something like this. See, now we have a little access slot on the damaged section of pipe. I'll stick my knife in here and just follow that ridge. Come up like so. And again, we'll start on the bottom, go straight up, follow that ridge. Whatever you want to do, something like that. Now I can take the damaged section of pipe out of the way. I want you to take a look at this hole again. Look at the size of that hole. No wonder why the sump pumps were going crazy during that last major rainstorm. Good thing we're patching this. So when you cut a section of drainage pipe away from an existing line, you want to protect this opening. Do not get any dirt or rocks in that line because that will cause quite the headache. So at this point, what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to find something to kind of protect this opening, block it off a little bit, and I'm just going to widen out the channel a little bit here, maybe get this rock out of here, cut these roots back, and create a nice sloped path for this new section of pipe to splice into. Alright, and I'm happy with how that trench came out. We're going to run the new pipe kind of underneath this root ball. It's going to go over this bedrock. I'm going to say this is bedrock because this thing is solid. We're going to connect to the other piece of pipe right there. And again, that way when we go to restack the rock wall, none of this weight will be really over that pipe. Maybe a little bit, but nothing like what it was before. And if the pipe's sticking out a little bit here, no big deal. In the springtime when we go to mulch the beds, it'll get covered up and you'll never know that there was a repair here. Alright, let's connect this new section of pipe. The old section of pipe, pretty clean. A little bit of dirt in there. Not much you're going to do about that. More concerned about the rocks because the dirt will flush out from. That's on there pretty good. My only question, should I put a screw going down through here? I'd kind of like to. Maybe a little stainless steel screw just to help lock everything together. Let's do a tug test. I mean, it's not coming apart. Probably is fine. Maybe we'll leave it alone. It seems to be alright. I guess we'll leave it. Let's go to the other connection now. So we'll sneak in something like this. Still have a nice pitch, nice slope. This is the tricky part because you don't want this to be too short, and if you make the cut too long, well then it's going to bulge out. I guess it's better to make it a little bit long, that way we can always shorten it up by a ring or two, whatever we got to do. So I'm gonna go a little bit long first, and we'll see where we end up. Looks pretty damn good right there. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna leave that the way it is. As we build up this rock wall, we can actually have it so that the rocks put some pressure against this pipe into the hillside, which is good. That'll make sure that connection stays connected and the upper connection stays connected. So Yeah, we're gonna leave this the way it is. So now let's get that god-awful expensive coupler. I mean, how can you charge $15 for this thing? A 4-inch internal coupler. And I looked this up on Amazon too. It wasn't really any cheaper on Amazon. It was like 12 bucks for this, and then after shipping and tax, you know, you're still looking at 14, 15 bucks. So yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on with the plastics market right now, but it's just nuts. A piece of 3-inch Schedule 40 gray underground conduit, $65 before tax. Wild. And I'm sure these big companies are just blaming it on inflation, but they're reaping in record profits. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a nice repair. Really happy with how it's coming out. I just got to stack this rock wall back up. I figure we'll bring some dirt back in first, maybe put a rock here, just kind of keep everything in place. But yeah, that looks really good. So now enjoy the time lapse of video magic here. And that's it. I'd say this is a good repair. Should definitely make a big difference next time it rains. But next time it rains, I am going to come out here and just look and listen to see if there's any other leaks in the line. But I'm 95% confident that was the only issue in the line. But it's just something you want to stay on top of. But with this job, I did the best I could with what I had given the constraints. A saying that I absolutely despise, something I cannot stand, is when guys say, well, good enough for this neighborhood. To me, that insinuates that, well, I got it fixed, maybe I half-assed it, but it's good enough. I hate that saying too, good enough. To me, that just means that you don't really try hard enough, or you don't take as much pride in your work as what you should. And I get it, sometimes, you know, you gotta do a bit of a hack job to get it fixed because the customer doesn't want to pay the full amount or whatever, just wants it kind of fixed, but that's not how I operate. Whenever I fix something, I try and do it to a T, try and make things perfect, because I take pride in my work, and I think you guys can see that. You know, every time I push one of these tool carts around, I kind of feel like a hibachi chef. Anyway, those subscribers to the channel will know that I recently replaced this Craftsman toolbox with that one I picked up out of the dumpster at that hospital there. So, limited space in the garage. For now, I'm going to throw this in the shed so that way we have a little bit more room in the garage for cars to park when this god-awful snow comes falling down. I didn't really mean to call the snow god-awful. I actually really like snow. It's a blessing. You know, I'm really getting to the point where I really could use some type of sawmill. Getting really close to pulling the trigger on one of those chainsaw sawmills, like the Alaskan chainsaw mill, whatever it's called. Only problem is my little 261 doesn't really have enough oomph to get the job done. My old man has a 660 chainsaw that he never uses and has a 36-inch bar. I think that'd be pretty perfect for milling the kind of lumber that I need. For example, these boards that lead into the shed. Be great for that. Also want to make some raised garden beds in the spring. Have a big garden project coming up in the spring and would be really handy to have. It's just a little bit weird borrowing another man's chainsaw. I'd really like to have my own big saw, but let's face it, those 660s, 880s, they get up there. You're expecting to spend probably $1,400 to $1,800 probably for one of those monster pro saws. I'm only probably going to use it for like a month, and then it's going to sit on the shelf for a while, so maybe I'll see if I can borrow that 660 and get one of those slab-in mills. The logging jib crane trailer. Definitely one of my favorite builds, and also probably the most useful thing that I've ever built. So there's an articulating jib crane, electronic, Harbor Freight, 2,000 pound winch, deep cycle RV battery attached to this thing. I also threw in a little LED spotlight so I can work at night, which I'm probably going to have to use that tonight. Anyway, I found this design, this trailer design, from a YouTube channel called From Steel to Wood. The guy that operates the channel, Jonathan, fantastic guy. Not sure if he likes to go by Joe or Jonathan. But I ended up emailing him, telling him, expressing my interest in what he had built, and told him that I was looking to build something very similar. He ended up sending me over some CAD drawings of what he drafted up, and I became inspired, drafted up my own design on a piece of paper because I don't have access to CAD. Don't really know how to use CAD. I'd love to learn how, but anyway. Awesome channel. Check him out, From Steel to Wood. Fantastic guy. Anyway, I normally keep this logging jib crane trailer attached to the mower, and I keep that parked in the garage to keep it out of the elements. That way I can also charge the batteries on both these units. Anyway, when it snows, it's more of a priority that cars are kept in the garage. So I loaded up this cart with some firewood rounds a few days ago now. Figure we might as well split it if it's going to get left outside. So let's split some firewood. So I have my little wireless remote for the winch. I normally keep this clipped on my belt. Then one hand operates the remote and the other kind of controls the jib. So we need to extend out a little bit here. We'll hook it from end to end on this round. Lifts the round right up. And normally nothing's in the way. You can see I gotta move this out of the way to sneak it through a little bit. Shift it over, whatever. But from here, this jib has some bearings and a grease fitting for the top point, which I do have a build series on this jib, but it just swings right over to my Wen 6.5 ton electric log splitter, and then I split the rounds. Of course, you gotta keep it held in position. Also have some stabilizers in the front of the trailer to level this thing out if I ever need, but generally there's so little gravitational pull on this that you really don't have to level off this trailer that frequently. Sometimes you get into some hairy situations and you have to. Generally, you can just kind of hold it in place, lower it down on the splitting table, split your round. Doesn't hurt your shoulders, save your body, kill the machine. I'm just so pleased with this trailer build because it's small enough as to where I can pull it behind my little Craftsman LT2000 lawnmower. You can do firewood all day long, and at the end of the day, you're not going to have a sore back and you're not going to have sore shoulders because this machine lifts those rounds off of the ground, puts them in the trailer for transport, lifts them up once more, throws them in the splitting table. And the splitting table is light enough as to where I can move it around. This is a Wen 6.5 ton electric log splitter, but I just move that close to where I'm stacking, and then as I split my pieces, just turn around, put them on the stack. Can't get much more efficient than that. Unless you have a firewood processor, of course, but I don't have that kind of money. Well, just finished up. Didn't quite get to a full stack. It's a little bit more than half though, so that's pretty good. Anyway, I gotta go park this trailer somewhere, go eat a frozen pizza, and then I gotta get to work on the snowblower, make sure that thing runs for tomorrow. Check back in a few seconds here, apparently.
Well, we're almost done for the day. The final thing I want to get done today is just try starting up this Ariens Deluxe 30. Make sure the oil is good. Make sure that it's somewhat adjusted well. Anyway, quick note about this snowblower. If you do decide to buy an Ariens snowblower, just pay attention to the auto turn models. Read the reviews. This is an auto turn model, and I don't like the auto turn. Basically, the auto turn is an alternative to a fixed axle. I would much prefer a fixed axle. Auto turn basically allows you, the operator, to turn the machine on a dime without having one of the tires skid. The issue with the auto turn, it's a good idea in theory, but my machine is way too sensitive. I think what happens is the amount of friction on one side of the snowblower housing is much more at times than the other side, and of course they alternate. But the machine mistakenly thinks that you're trying to turn it when in fact you're just trying to keep the machine going straight. Now, something that has helped that a lot is switching the steel shoes on the machine to poly shoes. And the poly shoes definitely reduce the coefficient of friction, so therefore there's less drag on the edges of the snowblower housing, and it definitely has made a huge difference. So it's definitely a lot better than shoveling regardless. So thinking what I'll do here, check the tire pressure, make sure that's good. I'll loosen up these bolts for the skids, and then if you have a paved surface, believe the spacing, the cutting edge should be an 1/8 inch spaced off of the pavement. If you have gravel or an uneven surface that you usually intend to snow blow, check your owner's manual, but I think that's more like a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more than that. But anyway, I have these washers. We'll use these as 1/8 inch spacers, and we'll drop the shoes back down and check the oil and see if we can get her started. Here we have those washers we're going to use as our 1/8 inch spacers, and I'm just going to put this underneath the edges of the cutting blade here. Like so. Now we'll go back to either side and tighten up those shoes. That way this cutting edge is spaced off the ground an 1/8 inch. Now, I have made instructional videos on how to properly adjust this machine the right way. We're just kind of doing a quick adjustment here, but if you want to know the right way, check your tire inflation pressure on both sides of the machine. Make sure they're equal and within spec. I put in 14 psi of pressure. Then what you do, you loosen up the skids on either side, and then you loosen up this bolt and this bolt while your machine's on a flat level surface. Let the cutting edge sit down on the floor, go up and down, make sure that blade hits evenly. And once that machine sits flat on the floor, then you can tighten up this bolt and the other bolt on the other side. So that way, you know that cutting edge is perfectly parallel to the ground. And then the final thing you would do is take those 1/8 inch spacers, put them beneath the cutting edge, and then finally push your shoes down and set the shoes. We skipped this step tonight. Not a big deal. I checked it last year. It was fine. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but that definitely makes a big difference when it comes to the auto turn feature. So you can see the moldboard housing is off those 1/8 inch spacers, and here's the real test. When you lift it, or when you tilt the machine back, it should come down evenly. See how both of those shoes are coming down evenly? That's what you want. That's going to make a big difference with the auto turn. So I'd say this machine is adjusted. So I did a complete maintenance video on this machine last year. Full oil change, lubricated everything. And since that video, I've only put probably 4 or 5 hours on the machine, so I don't think it's necessary that we change the oil, but we do want to ensure that we have oil. And we are within spec. Just look how clean that oil is though. I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but very clean oil. Yeah, so there's no need to change the oil. All right, next thing we need to do is turn the fuel on. So we'll turn this to on. I normally run the carburetor dry in the off season, so there's no fuel sitting in there. You know, I watched this girl online. I think her name's like Chica Canic or something. She's a small engine maintenance tech. I've watched a few of her videos. She makes some really good content. Her suggestion, when it comes to stowing small engines for extended periods of time, carbureted engines, what you do, empty out the fuel tank and then put some lightweight oil in there. I don't know, like a 5W30 or something, whatever. And then you try and start it. That way you get that engine oil into the carburetor and into the diaphragms and sensitive orifices. That way you protect those components. They stay lubricated. They're not going to dry rot because, you know, fuel nowadays has that ethanol in there and that just destroys carburetors. Personally, I haven't tested out her method yet. You know, if a carburetor goes shot, I'll just buy an aftermarket one on Amazon for 15 bucks, but just throwing it out there. Anyway, we have the fuel turned on. Let's prime this. Hopefully we'll hear some fuel start to gurgle out of there. Sounding a bit better now. All right, we gave her about 15 pumps, so we're gonna wanna turn this to start. That is our choke. And then we want the key to the on position, which I actually think it's on. I think this is stop. Yeah, so sideways should be on. So let's open up the garage and see if she'll fire. All right, give her a little bit of throttle. Let's see if she fires. Pull. She is running good. I was really surprised that she started up with one pull there. Thought it would take at least a few pulls, but she started right up. Let me tell you though, for about past year and a half, I've been treating my ethanol blended gasoline with this stuff right here, Stable. It's like a fuel stabilizer, keeps fuel fresh for up to 24 months for quick, easy starts after storage, treats up to 80 gallons, this is 32 fluid ounces. I think a container like this goes for 16 bucks. I'm not sponsored by this company, but let me tell you, this is just a little bit of cheap insurance. Ever since I started using this stuff, I have not had any problems with my carbureted equipment. I think this stuff is definitely worth its weight in gold. Again, not sponsored by them, but this is just a product I think that absolutely works. So leave a link for this in the description down below. Anyway, I'm gonna call it quits for tonight. Snow's coming now, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Get the drone out, take some overhead footage of this snowblower. Should make for some good content, so stay tuned.